although we have all of this information, all of this macro information, we also need to complement that with field work. We shouldn't just base all of our decisions on it. For certain things, yeah, that's really just enough. And let's not, spend more money and resources on things that we can just decide from that. But for other things, we really need to still even reach to our partners, reach to our audiences. A lot of the opportunities that we have as an NGO come from being on social media. Let's reduce the noise. Let's really focus on what's important. Let's build on our human competencies. Let's be better humans. Not only show that we're better humans.
Welcome once again to Africa Tech Talks. Our guest today is Erika Tavares, and she's the co-founder and board member of EcoAngola. She's highly expertised in topics related with ecology in Africa, specialized in Angola, and it's a pleasure to have you here, Erika. Good evening.
Hello, good evening, everyone. That's here to hear a bit about our conversation.
We're hoping that we can have a great conversation tonight. And without further delays, let me ask you how are technologies, and we had prior conversations regarding this, and how do you think that the technologies like drone, remote cameras, GIS is being used in the conservation projects in Africa? And can you give us examples that have impressed you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would say that remote sensing, GIS, and all of these technologies are now actually leading conservation efforts in Africa and globally. A lot of the research, a lot of the recent information, and even decision-making processes are happening based on information that we can acquire through satellite imagery, because it can just help us get faster at a cheaper rate uh,
Mhm.
to areas where before we couldn't reach. So with these technologies, for example, in terms of forests, you can do a whole forest monitoring and inventorying based on satellite imagery. You can see satellite imagery and do comparisons over time. Now, for example, we've been able to track land change use, deforestation rates, based on all of that information. And the best thing, it's stored and most of us can access. A lot of places you can actually access for free. But there are some tools that you have to pay. You need to, get your account, and definitely you will have better technology and more gadgets on it. But I would say that right now we're at a very important phase in terms of conservation efforts and the use of technologies for this. If we look at wildfires, for example, this is something that's being used globally, where you can get, instant alerts where there's fire outbreaks. And this is, what everywhere in the world. It's how we're tracking all of these quick changes that are happening in ecosystems.
And the decision making, what type of decisions are being made, um, and based on this type of data, and w- what do you think that changed uh, regarding what was the practice before and what's being done now?
hmm So I would first answer to the second question. What's the difference before and now? I would say that, some of these technologies have been in the market for 20 years or around that, but the difference is the accessibility. Any student, anyone basically can get some of these tools. Like I said, some are for free. You can just go and Google them, like Google Earth, for example. or you can have platforms where you can access this information as well for free, where these specific factors, you can kind of change them and just kind of click through them and use as your own need. For example, you can have a look at the Global Forest Watch. It's globally used, and they use a lot of different satellites and different technologies so they can get that information for their platform, and it's free. And you can have this, time changes about again land change use, and again about fires as well, deforestation rates. So I would say that that's one of the big differences is accessibility. Second, it's how fast these technologies are developing. I think that the the best we get, the quicker newer things come out. I was studying 5 to 7 years ago, and I am already out of date. You know, we really need to keep up with how fast these technologies are coming up and specializing on using them. I would say that for Africa, one of the big gaps is the fact that besides some of these tools being mostly from Western countries like NASA satellites and all of these big economies. I would say that another thing that Africa is still lacking is capacity, and I think this is for all sectors in development. But when it comes to ecosystems and conservation, we are really needing more ecologists that can manage and deal with geographical information systems. But at the same time, I do feel like it's happening. Like we're kind of seeing this shift happening. It's just so fast, and there are so many needs and opportunities. But we're kind of responding. But I'm an optimist, so whoever is watching this and has a different opinion, I understand you, but I'm an optimist, and this is, the change I'm seeing as I work through it. And in terms of influencing decisions, for example, you can now evaluate how climate changing is impacting a certain area, and you know that that area probably you shouldn't have people there, or you should prepare people to move from there, or you can also avoid doing agriculture in certain areas. You can find areas that have been degraded and now need restoration just through looking at satellite imagery. So it really facilitates how decisions can be made. But the challenge is that most of the times, and I think this is something that hasn't really changed much, is that scientists have their own conversations and politicians have their own conversations. And, the bridge is still not happening. And this is something that we're also trying to do in Angola. It's how can we push science and scientific evidence to influence decisions that make a difference in our daily lives and put that into practice. And I think that's what I can say about it.
So, democratizing the access to all those platforms has been a cornerstone to make everyone um, coming to this type of analysis and studies and understanding, but also it can be and maybe it's the lacking bridge, having data to show the politicians and then create this bridge based on data, because after all you need a fundament to take decisions, and who knows, hopefully it's true that. Ivo, I think you have something to question. Erica, sure.
Yeah, I just want to add, and I think that another difference is now we have a lot of data. I think that one of the biggest challenges now, it's there's just so much data that we have to analyze. We need to evaluate the quality of this data, because something that's very important is that although we have all of this information, all of this macro information, we also need to complement that with field work. And we shouldn't just base all of our decisions on it. For certain things, yeah, that's really just enough. and let's not, spend more money and resources on things that we can just decide from that. But for other things, we really need to still go to the field and check and evaluate, does this make sense, it doesn't make sense, and definitely question the data that we have, even though we have now um, been relying on these technologies more and more. But I think that the more we use them, the more we should also criticize uh, what these technologies are giving us, because there are discrepancies, and we can definitely always find differences in what a satellite tells you and what you see on the ground. There's always differences, but we just need to evaluate that margin of error for our decision to be even better.
Okay, it's so interesting, Erica. So right now, you guys in the type of work you're in, I imagine you are more capable than 10 years or 15 years ago. Like you said, the things one learned like 10 or 15 years right now, it's very different. So yeah, you have more tools available. You have lots of data, but you mentioned that you also we still lack human capacity, so to speak, in order to process that and coordinate efforts in the field. So right now, if someone, for instance, in Angola, is monitoring something and detects, I don't know, a wildfire somewhere, how quick can you put the boots on the ground and coordinate people and address this with local authorities and other relevant entities? How does that work?
Well, unfortunately, for the Angolan reality, that's not something that's happening at all. So we do have platforms where we can have these alerts. There's like a fire information resource management system, the MODIS alert from NASA. You have some bay tools like Aurora Tech. I've used them in our work in the past, and now it's been really, I would say, one of the main tools that's been used globally, but it's paid. Um, and, these things are out there, but some of them are not being used. And like you said, one thing is to have the information. How do you put the boots on the ground? This is not happening in Angola for fire management. But for example, I've seen in Angola, and especially with the government of Angola, for example, the Ministry of Agriculture and Forests, they've been using this tool, but for agriculture. And they've been kind of planning and supporting the development of agriculture using these tools. And another one is for alerts where there is oil spills. Yeah, yeah. So they have alerts where oil spills are happening and they can track it on time. But the response is a different conversation. For the oil, well, the oil sector has a lot more money, and there's a lot of urgent and quick impacts. For fire, unfortunately, Angola has been really losing a lot of its forests because of fire. So basically during July to September, it's our dry season, and there's when we have more fires. If you look at maps from Angola, satellite imagery, you will see that Angola is one of the countries that burns the most over the past 5 years globally. And in 2019, we were actually top one. We were burning more than the Amazon forest. So, and that was all seen through satellite imagery. But then there was some denying here. Again, if you go and you check on the ground, you will see that it is happening. But for example, when you want to check for fire, you need to, for example, if it's a fire alert that you have, sometimes it can be, not a wildfire, but something else might be burning. For example, we burn a lot of waste. So you will receive an alert that a fire is happening, but it's not a forest fire. And again, that's where you need to do that change. And this is not happening in Angola. But some other countries in Africa, they're really pushing for that. You can look at, Namibia doesn't have much forest, but you can look at other realities where they have a lot of forest, security, fiscals, and people on the ground that can do a quicker response.
And so you you already have these amazing tools at your disposal, and the amount of data that you have to analyze must be complemented with boots on the ground. And in any capacity, are you guys, for instance, using any kind of AI? So nowadays, everything is AI. Everyone talks about artificial intelligence. So, are you
Yeah.
using any kind of AI to complement this? To, I don't know, analyze imagery or photos for, I don't know, illegal logging activity, or or AI is already embedded in the tools that you use? How does that work?
Yeah, to some of them, AI is already embedded on it. But some of them, you kind of can do it manually. I am not a specialist on that, but I do know some of my colleagues that do make use of AI to just facilitate data analysis and make these processes run, quicker and use less time and get quicker information. I know that there's like this specific project, Ramo Earth. They've been doing some projects in Angola, Mozambique. It's a recent, they're not a startup. I think they're a company by now. But they've been doing really, really nice work with the agri and forest businesses. And I do believe that they use AI. So, yeah, but personally, I use AI, but it's mostly to like find quicker sources or information, like paid AI. And then it just helps me, for example, I don't know if it's something important to mention, but sometimes I just need some kind of like specific information from books. And, I just put the book there and ask, and I think that's a general usage for AI, but it definitely makes sense for our work as well, just like many of other people. But for our specific sector, yeah, the use of AI, yeah, 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 yeah. But I think that the difference here is from generations. There's a little, older people are more conservative about it. And I think that the fact that, if you compare 3 generations from now, all of this, there's just so much information that if we don't have the help of AI, we've been drowning on information basically. And I would say that my generations and these new generations, we really need the support of AI for us to kind of filter through all of it. And but I do understand the people who, don't really like AI, because I've been feeling it in my work and the people I work with. It really makes younger people very, very, very lazy. Sometimes I send, let's prepare this proposal or this document, and you give that information. Now that everyone has access to it, sometimes it's just a copy paste. They don't even criticize, question, or you should use it as a tool where you discuss and kind of improve your own ideas, and not a place where you source the ideas that you will present. So I think the fact that we're really breaking creativity, originality, it's what's making people be more conservative about AI. But it's just like any other tool. It's just like the internet itself. You have benefits and then you have negative consequence, and we just need to play around it. Yeah. And I do use AI, but I don't let it make a copy of myself. And one of the things I do particularly is before I go, to ChatGPT or any other AI tools, I prepare first my thoughts so that I don't break my own creativity process. And then when I'm ready, that's when I go and I deliver it. Because I know that I'm also feeding those ideas to it. Because whenever it enters, it's everywhere then. So I think it's
You're
learning
guiding
how
it
to.
instead of being guided by the. Yeah. Okay. So
Exactly.
very interesting.
Exactly.
Thank you, Erica. Back to you, Andre.
Erika, and we're entering an area that is not only very important, but it's something that I've been passionate about in the past 5 years now, and it's about sustainability and carbon credits. I remember I had in my MBA, I think 2007, something like that. We were already talking about the carbon credits and the carbon market and everything. And I remember being fascinated about it. And well, 2025, 20 years later, here we are. Um, I, I tried to talk to people, to organizations, and I haven't seen much being done. Not around the world because I'm mostly African based and Angola based, but I hope that you have more info of how to um, boost this type of with all the technology. How can we boost this, and what can be done so that we can increase the carbon credit market?
Well, I will go through personal experience. So whoever feels criticized about it, well, that's my intention. Um, uh, what I've been feeling in Africa is yes, if carbon credits, if you can make it work, then you can benefit from it. And I've seen projects benefiting from carbon credits, either in the voluntary market or in the regulator regulated market. Sorry. Um, and especially Tanzania, Madagascar, Mozambique, Namibia, either NGOs, private entities, communities, with the regulated market governments as well. So it's happening, but at a very slow rate in Africa. Again, access. Another point is that, yes, you do need to study. It's not just, any biologist or an economist will say, oh, I will do a carbon credit project because that's the thing. It became a buzz because everyone wants to be at the front line of a growing market, and it's growing at a fast rate. Although there have been some backlashes in the last 10 years. um, I'm telling that because I also went to study. I was just asking myself, why is it that if there are so many benefits, why is it that this mechanism is not working? Right now, we're putting together our first carbon credit project in EcoAngola. Actually, I will not mention much because it's still on the process and we do not want to fail publicly. But I did some research to see what projects, are active in Angola. And right now, there is none. None. There are projects in the process. And this process is also a bit complex. You need to have money, first of all. And that's why it's also another strangulator for Africans, is that you need money to invest. You need to do the research. You need to have the data. You need to have it audited. They need to check. It needs to be certified, and that's when you have the credits, and that's when you enter the market. So there's a lot of different levels, and each level it's complex. Each level needs people with experience. And again, talking about Angolan, from my experience in the Angolan market, people are lazy to study. This is not just something that, a biologist or, like I said, an economist, anyone will say, I'm going to put a carbon credit project. It needs to be really studied so that we can understand these different phases. And we've been preparing for it for the past 2 years. And I'm still not ready to say, we're putting together a carbon credit project. Um, but what we're doing now, it's really getting in touch and building relationships with those who have done it. So right now we have a partner in Namibia, and it's a private company, and they've been doing carbon credits for it's a species of algae, I don't recall the name, and they've been able to get credits from that. And then in Tanzania, there's also a lot of projects. I was recently there for a conference where we were talking about decarbonizing the ocean, and carbon credit projects can support on that. So we're really studying, besides, because of the language barrier, we also study a lot of Brazilian projects, but the reality in Africa is a bit different. And some countries like Kenya, Tanzania as well, they are really, they're years ahead of us. This is something that I always say, because we'd like to say, oh, we're doing this and we're doing that. And I feel ashamed. I'm sorry, I'm very direct and I tell what I think. I feel ashamed when I go to these conferences and they come and they ask, what are you doing in Angola? And I'm literally there with my note and my pen, and I'm like, I am here to learn.
You feel like you have more,
and I think
more to show at this point, right? You as a Angolan.
Exactly. And especially because we make so much marketing about it. And we go to these international conferences to talk about mangrove conservation. I'm going to be hated for this, but but when you go and you check the projects on the field, they're not happening. There was one project, and it was from a private company, international one, but working in Angola. Maybe Ivo, you know them, where they were doing the stoves. So they would reduce deforestation rates through, best. How can I say
Solar
it?
stoves.
So there were stoves that yes. And but this project has finished. They didn't continue in Angola. And besides that, it's also politicians. If this market is starting, in many of other countries, they started in the volunteering market. Angola is already talking about regulating the market, and I'm just like, we don't even have a project. Why are you, trying to be 30 or 50 years ahead when you don't even have year 5 completed? It's not that we couldn't learn from other countries, but this process of learning and creating capacity, it has to happen. We will not reach that point until we haven't figured out the starting point. And that's my opinion based on my experiences and my own curiosity about the carbon market.
Carbon credits. And let's make a quick jump here to another area of interest, which is the way we can educate newer generations, right? So EcoAngola, for instance, is one of the most followed NGOs in social media in the country. I would say top 5 at least, or top 3 without doing my research, but just my feeling, right?
I can help. Top 1.
Thank you. You've done your research. Thank you so much. So your top 1. It's top 1 right now. I imagine you guys harness the power of LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Those are major platforms. The Angolan population is very young also, right? So the average age is still 16, I think, or 15 point whatever, but rounded up 16 or rounded down. So a lot of things are happening, a lot of mediums besides traditional. traditional mediums of communication are being used, right? So besides social media, podcasts like this one, for instance, and many others are being used. Uh, Webinars using tools like StreamYard, Zoom, and whatever. Um, so do you think this is actually a tangible thing that is playing a role on educating the audience, especially younger generations, on this? Do you feel like it's really effective, or it's just you know another way to communicate and to complement a little bit, or it's the major way to get to younger people?
Mhm. Well, I really like this question because this is a discussion that I've been actively having with other people and from different generations because of all of the noise that we find, on social media, on internet in general. And a lot of people that I talk to, they defend that, you are just one more, you are just another one. There's just so much and so many things that we can have access to, and paid posts and all of these noise whenever you enter any kind of social media um page or app. But on the other side is, a lot of these noise are actually things that do not benefit us as a species, as human beings. It's just noise. And I think that one of the things that we're really needing, for this generation is how to block this noise and how to access what's actually important that's around there. I don't believe that we should not use social media, but I do believe that we need to teach younger people and even older people. Sometimes I see them, sharing the most nonsense content on the internet, just people in general, how to really evaluate what's important, what's, benefiting, what should we share and what we shouldn't, and give space to those things. And one of the things that, from our experience, EcoAngola wouldn't exist if it wasn't social media. That's a fact. We actually started as our initial idea was just to create content to kind of raise awareness for these topics and advocate for these topics within civil society. And because at the time there was basically none, there were some NGOs, but they didn't really have any, voice on the internet. When we started, it really caused one, people really starting to get in touch and volunteering and wanting to create articles. In 2 months, we were launching our website, and it was all based on volunteer work. And people started reading what we were posting because, again, there was just so much noise that people felt the need. Okay, we really need to have information about environmental or social topics or climate change about Angola. So we found that opportunity there. And with time, we're seeing this interest, growing. It's slow, but it's growing. And it definitely is helping us reach people that without social media, without, internet in general, we wouldn't be able to reach, or even reach to our partners, reach to our audiences. A lot of the opportunities that we have as an NGO come from being on social media more than the actions we have on the ground. And the actions we have on the ground, they also make a noise on social media. And one of the roles that we're really trying to play is to inspire for positive action and positive change in Angola, in Africa, globally. Um, and when it comes to, younger generations, yeah, it's our main, I would say, our main place to be in touch with young people. We cannot talk to young people without using social media. um, you know, it's then more effective, even though there's noise and there's people. I'm sorry, I use a very straightforward language. There are idiots as well out there, but but independently of being or being not being an idiot, we need to reach everyone, and even then, we need to also influence and educate. Um, And that's another thing. It's how polarized these accesses and information have been that are just pushing people away, when we should have different people, different opinions, but really looking at the same mission. And that's something that we really try to advocate as well. I know. Yeah. 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 So sensitive. Yeah. 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 Mm-hmm. Access. Yeah. 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 I think that I think in that sense, we're kind of oldies. It's like we still don't have TikTok. We still don't have TikTok. I personally I hate TikTok personally, so I don't mind if we have it or if we don't have it. But we're missing an audience. We're definitely I know. So there are things that, as you know, as a culture from the organization, if I don't believe people should be using and taking content like that, it's something that I try not to promote internally. But this is like personal. And, if any other person from the team says, oh, we need TikTok, I'm just going to make a, okay, but, I'm not going to help you with it. Let's see how far you get. And that happened before. We had a communication team that they did open a TikTok, but I don't even, it just was forgotten. But again, we're missing a big audience there. Um, but in terms of like the strategy that we use, we do try to have shorter clips, yes. We do try to have, impactful images. One of the things that we've been really doing this year is campaigns where we have recent data, numbers, key figures. Um, you know, what's important for people to know. One thing is that I know, for example, people don't have water. Yeah, but how many people don't have access to water? Oh, we have so many species in Angola. Okay, but how many species, are in uh, I forgot the word in my Portuguese brain is coming. Uh, Um, yeah, but how many species are, at a vulnerable position and that need protection? And this is something that we're really seeing because most of our communication is organic. This year we've done 2 or 3 paid posts, and it actually worked well. But we see that sometimes when we put paid posts, it kind of impacts on the other posts. So we really avoid to do that because we want to know what's the real interest of people. And that's what we've been putting out. And another thing that's on our strategy, for example, in terms of putting the articles that we publish, uh, before we used to do things that we thought were interesting. Now we really try to know what is it that people want to know? What is it that people need to know? And kind of keep track. We do have an annual plan, but we've been really adjusting as we go. As newer topics are coming and arising, and trying to maintain the baseline, but keeping the flow of
Okay.
what's happening right now.
Quite interesting.
Yeah.
Andrea, back to you.
Going a little bit against the flow because I don't think this is a very hot topic these days. But I would like to ask you about the innovation in agriculture, energy, and waste management. We talked about it really briefly when we touched the fires, and that most of the population here in Angola, especially from outside the big city regions, they mostly burn their waste. And I would like to understand from your part what is being done with this all this technology that is being made available, and I'm not just talking about the scanners and the big tech behind the outer space mechanisms, but I'm also talking about the real in like you said, boot on the ground knowledge and technology that is being used, and in all this, like in energy, waste management, and also in agriculture. How do you see all this?
Mm-hmm. Well, I would say that I will talk a little bit more about the waste management part of things in agriculture. Um, I also have a personal discussion about renewable energies and their importance and usage and global agendas and interests in economics. I would prefer not to share much because it's still something that I've been discussing with myself and people that I work with and seeing the trends globally. And it's just a subject that's going backwards and frontwards and backwards and frontwards, and it's confusing. So I will rather focus on agriculture and waste management. So with agriculture, I will talk about Angola again. I have been seeing, or at least I've seen, two local companies using technologies to manage their crops. So when it's the best season, when it's the best time, they can do some projections, even about environmental or temperature, rain, and you can kind of project when it will happen and how it will happen, how much, so you can best plan what makes sense for you to produce. That's one thing. Another way that I've been seeing using is water management. Because a lot of the agriculture and production, the use of water, you know, before, or let's say in rural areas or familiar production, is just irrigating and putting water. It doesn't matter how much, it's just let's put water and it works. But we've been wasting a lot of water. So I've now been seeing some systems to best use water, and with AI and all of these data from satellites and climate and everything, it just goes and kind of tells you what's the best time of the day that the water springs will come, and how much time it will be, so that at a certain time when the sun is some I'm trying to kind of just give an idea of how much specific it can be and how much it can really help us to save resources. And that's how it impacts on our economy as well, because that's sustainability, right? We really want to save resources, be great for the environment, and develop. Um, so I would say that these are like two specific things. And it also happens as well in terms of like tracking the development of what they plant and how long it takes. To people who use pesticides or any other chemicals to support, or chemical fertilizers. Sometimes they also use to calculate how much they should use, and at a certain type of soil, how much they should put, and how what's the window that they should use. And I would say that in Angola it's starting, um, but I think it's something that over the next 10 to 20 years, it will really, really jump, because these technologies are getting cheaper and cheaper, and they really help use or save resources and save money. and make these systems more efficient. And I think that's where we can really do a lot of gains from it. And another one, in terms of waste management, this is one of the things that, I really wanted to talk with you guys before. It's, well, again, it's also a discussion that's ongoing. I've been working on a project for the past 2-3 years in terms of waste management in Angola, and trying to use an app to track waste. Because looking at the waste management system in Angola, it it I'm very critical with my opinions, that to me it barely exists. It's more about, taking the waste from the streets and dumping them on an open dumping site. We are not making the use management. Exactly. Um, and it's funny that, there are smaller companies that are starting to do recycling of, not all of the waste, but to a lot of waste. And because, a few years ago, Angola prohibited, they created a decree that prohibited exporting waste, because some of the waste was being exported for industries that could recycle. So that their intention was to make Angola promote more of recycling internally, but then the system is not built. Right now, what's happening is that the smaller companies that are doing recycling for certain types of waste, they basically use very poor people to jump into bins to take the waste, and they go and they sell them at a very, very cheap price. And one of the tools that we had, we really wanted to enter in Angola was Collect. It's an app that kind of tracks, waste collection sites and how much it collects. And it kind of also adds the EPR, which is the extended producer responsibility, where companies that pollute or that put waste there, they would pay for a fee to support improving the social responsibility of waste pickers, because for the urban reality of Angola, you will not be able to have trucks collecting waste in every street. Yes, we do need waste pickers, just like the model that's used in Brazil, but what we're failing, it's protecting the people that do that. And one of the discussions that we've been having with the government of Angola, it's not active at this moment, but it can reignite. It's about creating, they wanted to regulate this system. In my opinion, it shouldn't be regulated. It should be an open market. It should be competitive, where companies would really try to support and source this waste in a, responsible way, and taking into account, the people that do that, and valuing the people that do that, which is not happening right now. And it really makes me sad to see that, very simple changes and implementations could really have a big difference. And with that, an indirect result would be, for example, improving digital literacy, because people would kind of be forced to use, a cell phone to sell their waste, to then have money on their, accounts, and kind of starting to formalize this economy, because this is something that's happening. But again, it's informal. It's not supporting anyone. It's really just supporting poverty. And yeah, I would say that this is one of the things that, it worked in other countries. And I would really like to see that happening in Angola. But as an optimist, I think this is a matter of time. I think that um, this movement of people who are interested in, bringing these technologies and the digital part and the environmental discussions and the social discussions, it's happening now. It wasn't happening 30 years ago. Before, we were still concerned about, keeping peace, and we're still concerned about keeping peace. But, but now, it's, yeah, it's really discussion about development. Yeah, I don't want to enter now into politics, otherwise my advocacy side will come, and that's what you need to shut down the internet.
No, I think we can speak about it. Yeah, sometimes things go in a certain way,
Yeah.
interpret in other ways, and it gets difficult because of that. That's the main problem.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah,
Yeah. And I just wanted to mention, sorry, Ivo, one thing, in that system with the EPR, the extended producer reality, and how, having an app would facilitate people accessing these funds. It's the fact that, when we think about buying a bottle of water, I don't want to have the brand here. When we think about buying a water bottle, you don't buy the water, you buy the bottle. And that's the thing. We've been basically buying the waste that's having our cities, very full of them, plastics specifically. And the companies that are benefiting, economically from us buying this waste, they are not being responsible about how this waste ends or where this waste ends. And this is where governments should enter and have this conversation and force them, because the tools exist, the information exists, the experiences exist worldwide. It's just a matter of wanting to do it and, creating the system to doing the mechanisms
must
to
be
do
like
it. But
some kind of fair economic incentive to all of this. Um, we have in Germany, there's incentives in society in place for many years now that incentivize the population to return. You're talking about water bottles, right? Incentivized to return water bottles, be it plastic
yeah,
or glass or whatever. I think they call it fund or something. So you return something and you get like a quarter back. The machines for that. Maybe that's a little bit, I don't know, because of a lack of infrastructure. Deploying that with the machines here could be a little bit challenging. Um, but I was seeing this. Some German guy. This was on Reddit, right? So he bought a PlayStation 5 with the money from the returns from plastic water bottles, I think. So it took him 44 days, 2 to 3 hours a day collecting. He said he was roaming in the city to collect this, but he gathered enough money to get him a brand new PlayStation 5. But your concern is you're stressing out that companies already working on this, but some the rights, the human rights of the people that are doing the collection are not being safeguarded, right? So because what we are witnessing is literally young people, kids, underage kids, right, just jumping into containers of trash to pick up cans of soda,
yeah,
plastic bottles, whatever, you name it. So that's not a cool way to do it,
yeah.
not sustainable. And
No,
more
it's just increasing more problems. It's just increasing more problems. You have more kids diseased, you have kids not going to school, you have, just increasing more problems. Whereas we could even create jobs if we just implemented this system, or, there are other models. Um, but, we need to be realistic with how much technology we can have to solve these social problems, because we also have the issue of education and certain limitations, so we really need to give it one step at a time. We will probably not reach the Germany level, but we can reach some kind of Brazil level in the next years if we start slowly and looking at our reality, not saying that that's impossible, but let's be realistic with what we can do, and not go for like the bigger things. What we can solve, we can even solve the smallest problems. Sometimes we can even, even the system that's in place, sometimes we see areas in the city where they're just filled with waste, and what's the problem there? Yeah.
China 2004, something like that. And I had kids waiting for me to finish my water bottle because they wanted to keep the bottle for them, and it wouldn't go to waste. The streets were immaculate, and I was just recently reading, I think on Reddit also, that there's not enough waste in China today because they implemented this 20 years ago. And so I think, yeah, someone has to take the first step towards that goal, for sure.
And that's the thing. That's even another opportunity for, economics. If we are able to implement a system where we could at least, kind of already divide and have people selling the waste to these companies, and some companies, for the waste that we cannot recycle locally, then we could sell to China or, whatever we need, and create a system where we can actually earn money from cleaning our cities. But there are other things that we need to take into account, because that also creates emissions to transport, and looking at this whole thing, it's quite complex, but
Yeah, it's also sometimes the systems that seems so obvious, but setting everything up and having all the stakeholders bought in, because everyone must have the right incentives in place, right? Otherwise, the system falls apart. So, and just to finish, Erica, this is I just feel like we could be here a couple of more hours just talking about all these
yeah.
amazing things. But just wrapping up and looking into the future, we mentioned capacity building and all the investments that need to be made. Africa as a continent, and especially Angola, you have these dividends, the youth dividend that is a major resource that you can tap into, because you have a lot of young people. But if you have lots of young people, but not the right training, not the right education, not the right conditions of living, it can turn against you, right? So in the near future, um, so I would make a big question for you just to end today's episode. So if you could create like a perfect uh, alliance, right, between governments, the private sector, NGOs, um, in order to make all of this work. I know that there's not a single answer for this, right? But based on your real life experience, work experience, and personal experiences too, what do you see? What is what is the next logical step in order to help glue the things that are not well connected now, right? So, what do you think needs to be done in a big way, at least?
Yeah. Well, I feel like I do have the answer, and it's very simple. Uh, One of the things, and I don't see it just happening in Angola. It's a global issue. It's lack of coordination. Lack of coordination. And to me, a very simple way of doing that is just having, even if it's open meetings 3 times a year, where people can submit ideas. What am I doing? What are you doing? And then we discuss, and then we see where resources are being spent, and just coordination. And this is something that I really like about my job. Me personally, I really take the time to know what people are doing in different cities, who's funding. I have my own database, and it's something that if I did have other people that would do that, we would know what's happening. Okay, so this guy is working here and this guy is working there. Okay, let's help. Okay, the government now needs to do this and we have funds for this. Why shouldn't we apply on it? And it's just coordination, because a lot of things are happening, it's not just optimism, it's reality, from private companies, from NGOs, from international organizations, from government. They're doing their part, but they could do a lot more. And yeah, someone should take initiative. We have tried to take initiative to do that coordination, but then it comes back to human parts of things, lack of being humble, it's just a fight of egos, government saying, why is an NGO coming to tell us we should talk together? But we should talk together. Okay, then do it. It never happens. And then you have, private companies. Okay, it's like they're focused. We have the money. We just need to have the acceptance of the government. With that, we don't care about anything else. We do our job. And this conversation is really what we're missing. And it's not just
Angola, you cannot say,
around the
cannot
globe.
say that Angola, as many other countries, but Angola, at least I can speak with. You have plans for almost everything, strategic plans, implementation plans. So people complain that the government or the country should have like a vision or a strategy. Strategy is the word, right? But if you look into it, there's a lot of things done, and over the last 20 or 30 years. And there's lots of resources and lots of studies that were made in with and guidelines. And what is missing is it was proper. One of the biggest problems is proper execution. And for proper execution, many things contribute to that, right?
Not only some are really executing. That's what I find it, I've been to areas where I thought there's nothing here. And then, I was wowed. Because some people, they don't communicate much about what they're doing. It's funny that those that communicate a lot are usually doing less. It's just they communicate less, usually doing paper. Huh? Exactly. But I think that another thing that we're lacking is, monitoring,
Yeah, sure,
sure,
sure.
but accountability. You know, I believe this just openly. Maybe one day a journalist will watch this and think about it. But please, we should really investigate what we said we would do over this past 50 years, talking Angola specifically, and what we actually did. I'm very curious about this. And we will see that probably not even 1%. Um, and no one is accountable for, saying, oh, we will do this and we will do that. And after 1 year, no one thinks about it. Everyone forgot. And next time, I come back again with the same thing. It's
Lessons, no kind of lessons near
right.
here, right? So you keep
Accountability.
doing the same. Why did this failed? Maybe
Yeah.
we should investigate a little bit because nobody's superhuman, right? So if they failed, then was a reason or a couple of reasons or more than a couple of reasons, right? So I should really learn from that and not just say no, it failed because it was that guy doing that. I'm gonna do differently. But what you normally see is that the same constraints, the same obstacles
Right.
appear to you, and it's difficult if you don't prepare for them in advance. You cannot handle them properly, and I don't know, funding runs out, everything runs out, and then
And I
just
feel very sorry for Yeah. No, and I feel very sorry for older generations because they've been seeing that happening over and over and over again. I've been only here for a couple of years and I'm already like, what the hell? This is definitely not working for anyone. Like, why do we keep on doing the same mistake over and over again? And I am quite hopeful that maybe our recent generations will break this loop. I hope if Innocence fails, I will try again.
generation or no, this is some progress, right? So you see a lot of people doing things. Doesn't mean that you are progressing. But yeah, Erika, listen, thank you so much for joining us. Would you like to leave a final message for our audience? Um,
Yeah, I mean, I think I've left a lot of messages, but I would say that key message is let's reduce the noise. Let's really focus on what's important. Let's build on our human competencies. Let's be better humans. Not only show that we're better humans, And it starts from home, it starts from the street, and then it, just goes and continues on the bigger decisions. And yeah, I mean, there's so many messages that I can leave. Let's yeah, be better humans. And I think that we really need to have these discussions. We need to hear different opinions, we need to criticize, we need to ask for our rights, and we need to let other people know about their rights, because I think that a lot of us are seeing a lot of injustice on a daily basis. um we're kind of, again, it's the same loop. You just kind of, you know don't have the courage or the energy, or you don't even you get used to that status quo. So my message is, let's break the status quo, and disrupt this loop we're in.
Let's
And let's be brave. I think that's, for all of
like
what I
the
said, it's
latest
be brave.
super
Yeah.
movie that I have to watch. I think the main message is be a good person. Be a good person, right? Yes, yes. If you haven't seen it,
Oh, really?
watch it. It's an interesting.
Okay, I haven't watched it.
Some people don't like it. I
Yeah,
like it, but the main message was there's hope. So instill hope in people for a better future.
like, oh,
And if you are good to other people,
mm.
things change.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Actually,
And feeding.
can change. Hmm.
Yeah, and feeding hope, you know, finding the right people, feeding the right people, supporting the right people, and also being supported, and not draining ourselves. I think this is also another issue from, what's happening in the world, is that we are all so drained. And one of the best things that we can do is go be with nature. Yeah. So
It's
a lot of
fun
messages.
to compile this nowadays. It's very easy. We'll do a summary of all the main messages after this podcast. We'll share it on our social media too. Thank you for listening and watching this latest episode with Erika. Erika, thank you so much. We'll see you soon. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.